Support for today's episode comes from Amazon. Amazon is working toward a carbon free energy future, doing more with less, investing where it matters most, and supporting communities where we operate. Battery Storage's new playbook starts before permitting. Battery storage developers are moving safety engineering, fire authority consultation, insurance review, and community engagement earlier in the development process as local opposition spreads. The approach does not guarantee approval, but it gives projects a stronger technical and procedural record before public review begins. As of May 2026, Carina Energy had identified 163 battery storage restrictions across 16 states, including 125 that were active at the time. New York alone accounted for the largest share, with 98 active municipal restrictions earlier in the year, though that number has since declined as some moratoriums expired or changed status. For developers, those figures are the clearest evidence yet that project success now depends on factors that rarely appear in equipment specifications: community trust, emergency planning, engineering quality, and the ability to satisfy insurers, regulators, and local officials before construction even begins. The industry is building on a genuine safety record. Battery storage has expanded rapidly over the past decade as utilities and grid operators sought flexible resources to support renewable energy, improve reliability, and manage peak demand. That growth was tested by a highly visible failure. On January 16, 2025, a fire broke out at Vistra Energy's Moss Landing storage facility in Monterey County, California, prompting evacuation orders affecting an estimated 1,200 to 1,500 nearby residents. According to the Electric Power Research Institute, the normalized failure rate for utility-scale battery systems declined approximately 98% between 2018 and 2024, even as installed capacity expanded dramatically over the same period. That is the number that tends to get lost in coverage of local opposition. The technology is getting measurably safer, and the data backs it up. Developers are building the response in from day one. Developers are increasingly trying to reduce approval risk by investing in safety engineering, insurer engagement, and community consultation before filing permit applications, rather than treating them as boxes to check once opposition has already emerged. Many now involve local fire departments months before construction begins, giving responders time to review site layouts, access roads, water supplies, and incident response procedures well ahead of any approval hearing. That earlier engagement can help distinguish projects that enter public review with established safety documentation from those attempting to answer fundamental concerns during the approval process itself, even though evidence connecting these practices to shorter permitting timelines remains largely project-specific. Standards are creating a common framework for evaluation. Industry standards have matured alongside the moratorium wave. NFPA 855 provides a common safety framework covering system location, separation, fire protection, ventilation, explosion control, and emergency planning. Adoption and enforcement still vary by jurisdiction. The 2026 edition, issued in October 2025, places greater emphasis on large-scale fire and explosion testing and on the information authorities need to evaluate installation-level hazards. UL 9540 certification evaluates complete energy storage systems, while UL 9540A testing examines thermal runaway behavior and the potential for fire propagation, and both have become established reference points for regulators and insurers. California's SB 283, the Clean Energy Safety Act, signed in October 2025, requires covered developers to consult with local fire authorities before filing a permit application, and requires a fire safety inspection before operation, subject to specified review timelines. The law adds a mandatory consultation and inspection step, but it may also reduce later uncertainty by giving developers, fire officials, insurers, and permitting authorities a shared record of a project's safety planning. Insurers are scrutinizing projects more closely. Insurance has become one of the more visible pressure points shaping how projects get built. Specialty underwriters increasingly evaluate battery projects on design and system integration, fire protection, contractor experience, commissioning, and cybersecurity, not simply battery chemistry. The reasoning is straightforward. Most operational risk turns out to live in the balance of the plant, not the cells themselves. Controls, installation quality, thermal management, and transformers all show up in incident records as often as the battery itself does. Developers that can provide stronger engineering and risk documentation are generally better positioned to obtain coverage and avoid underwriting delays. But the available evidence does not yet establish a market-wide trend toward better pricing. Insurer scrutiny is becoming another form of project diligence that can strengthen a developer's financing record, a pattern already visible across the broader property and casualty market this year. Coverage itself, however, is not a safety certification. Communities evaluate more than failure rates. The most consequential work increasingly begins before a permit application is submitted. Developers are meeting with local officials, emergency responders, neighboring property owners, and community organizations earlier, then using those discussions to reconsider access roads, setbacks, landscaping, water availability, emergency procedures, and traffic plans. That engagement does not guarantee approval, and national data does not yet establish that it consistently shortens permitting timelines. It can, however, reduce the risk that fundamental safety and siting concerns emerge only after a project has entered formal review. New York illustrates the scale of the challenge. Carina Energy counted 98 active municipal restrictions in the state earlier in 2026, the peak figure cited above. The concentration shows that improved industry-wide failure rates do not automatically resolve local concerns. Developers still have to demonstrate how a specific system, at a specific site, will protect residents and emergency responders. Quality is becoming the industry's competitive advantage. Battery storage remains one of the fastest-growing segments of the U.S. energy system, supported by rising electricity demand, renewable energy integration, and grid modernization initiatives. Strong safety performance alone is no longer sufficient. Developers increasingly need to convert engineering quality into documentation that fire officials, insurers, lenders, and communities can independently evaluate before formal permitting begins. The same execution-first discipline that has been taking hold across energy infrastructure financing more broadly this year. That is a familiar pattern for infrastructure industries moving from rapid early growth into a more disciplined second phase. Whether it also produces measurably faster approvals is not yet established in the available data, but the shift in how projects are built and documented is already underway. Sustainability Soundbites energy coverage is sponsored by Amazon. Visit the link in our show notes to learn more about Amazon's spotlight on energy. For sponsorship opportunities with Environment and Energy Leader, please reach out to a member of our team.